day towards the end of the year, when talk of autumn was in the air, the skylarking was over, and most of the birds had gone to Spain, Roobarb was woken from a deep slumber by twittering and squeaking as had never been heard before.
What's all that noise about?
Demanded Roobarb, rubbing sleep from his eyes.
The rest of the birds have gone away for the winter and left us out on a limb,
Squeaked a small swallow.
Well, if they make as much noise as you do, I'm very glad they have,
Said Roobarb in an angry sort of way.
Small birds' wings freeze up in the winter if we stay here.
Said the swallow. Just then, Mrs. Hedgehog rolled by and said she'd be back in the spring. Tortoise was shutting up house as another leaf fluttered to the ground. Maybe I was too harsh on the birds, thought Roobarb as he sat by the fire making a piece of toast.
Maybe I could help them.
Maybe you could help yourself, my dear chap, Roobarb thought as an idea forced its way into his blank mind. A travel agency, that's what I'll do. Open a travel agency. What a brilliant idea, thought Roobarb to himself as he went down the garden to ask Custard to collect as many passengers as possible.
Oh, where will you go?
Asked Custard. I thought of that too, grinned Roobarb, and nailed a huge notice to the tree. Rhubarb's Travel Agency, said the notice. First class travel to Goose Bay, Turkey, Bear Island, Reindeer Lake, Dogger Bank, Buffalo and Moose River.
What a wonderful selection, but how will you get there?
Sighed Custard. I've even thought of that, grinned Rhubarb smugly. By flying machine. Banging and hammering noises drifted from the shed as Rhubarb set to building his flying machine and dreaming of faraway places. At the end of the afternoon, when the little hand was on 4 and the big hand was on 12, the shed began to creak and groan at the seams, and as the clock struck 4, the roof burst off the shed and Rhubarb appeared in a huge balloon.
What's that?
Screeched Custard. A hot air balloon, announced Rhubarb.
Well, with you driving it, you won't run out of fuel.
Chortled Custard. Where are the birds? Demanded Rhubarb.
Oh, a trade wind blew by and they went off on that,
Said Custard. Just as Rhubarb was grumbling about all the trouble he'd been to help the birds, the balloon ripped on a sharp twig. And Rhubarb went hurtling off round the garden at tremendous speed. And ended up at the top of the tree, feeling very deflated.
My, you look deflated,
Said Custard, and got the giggles again, and made so much noise that Tortoise came out to see what was happening.
The balloon has given me an idea,
Smiled Rhubarb,
I think I'll call it a jet.
and Custard collapsed. Once upon a time, nobody is quite sure about, Rhubarb was shaken, not stirred from his slumbers, by the nerve-shattering sound of his silly old alarm clock ringing at the top of its bone. The day hasn't even arrived yet, snapped Rhubarb as he pressed his nose to the window and blinked at the blank outside. Your big hand doesn't know what your little hand's doing, snarled Rhubarb to the clock. I sometimes wonder what makes you tick. Custard was catnapping on the fence and took no heed of the clock. But the birds were all up and about and hopping mad because there was no sky to float about in. Rhubarb was trying to get back to sleep, but with all the birds making such a noise, it was completely impossible. What What those birds need is a good barking to, grizzled Rhubarb as he stormed out of the house and demanded to know what all the noise was about, even before the day had arrived. The day's here, all right, squeaked the birds. It's just not been coloured in, and we can't take off before a day's been coloured in. Even old Rookie won't take off. Rhubarb phoned the weathercock and made certain inquiries as to why the day hadn't been coloured in. Oh, but it was coloured in, crowed the weathercock. I've got the dispatch note here. Tuesday, sky, white clouds on bright blue background, grass, green, sun, yellow. It was sent off at 6:45, but got covered in fog. Could you get some wind? Inquired Rhubarb in a clever sort of way. I'll try. I'm a gentle breeze from the Orient, said East Wind. Good for waving silk flags, but not for moving thick fog. Sorry. South Wind wasn't interested either. He just sauntered by and whistled something about having to blow at a jazz concert. The Wild West Wind was busy blowing tumbleweed over the prairie. North Wind would be best, said the weathercock. He wasn't at home, but I did leave a message. Right, said Rhubarb, groped his way up to the shed and proclaimed that he would get rid of the fog.
Now what could that mean?
Groaned the birds. A machine, shouted Rhubarb. The Rhubarb patented fog collecting machine. Well, we may as well forget today, croaked Rookie. Just before the birds were bored, the shed door opened and Rhubarb pulled and heaved his fog-winding machine into the garden and started it up. Great clanking noises filled the air as yards of fog was sucked into the machine, together with chairs and pictures and cups and saucers, which were whisked out of the house as the machine went berserk and finally blew up. North Wind blew in and cleared the air so everyone could see. Good morning, said the North Wind. What's all this mess then, eh?
I haven't the foggiest idea,
said Custard. Long roaring sounds were all over the garden one morning, and Rhubarb was convinced it was an earthquake, until he looked out and saw to his amazement that it was a canoe with tears. Oi, canoe, shouted Rhubarb in a brave sort of way. Why are you crying? I'm lost, sobbed the beast, and blew his nose on a large red spotted hanky. I've never seen a canoe crying before, shrugged Rhubarb. But on the other paw, I've never seen a canoe before either. You are a canoe, are you not? Inquired Rhubarb. No, sniffed the canoe. I'm a lion. Oh, said Rhubarb in a surprised sort of way. Would you like a marrow-bone jelly? The lion took a jelly and told Rhubarb all about how sad he was about being lost from the circus. And by this time, the birds and Custard had arrived and were listening to the lion's tale of woe. Everyone tried to cheer Lion up, but it was no good. I know, snapped Rhubarb. Let's have a circus, the greatest show on earth. That's bound to cheer him up. Custard scuttled over the fence, not wanting to be associated with yet another of Rhubarb's pea-brained ideas. All the birds were very excited and said that they thought it was a good idea. You agree with me? Gulped Rhubarb and almost fainted. Well, yes, we agree to be the audience, twittled the birds and fluttered about with excitement. And we agreed to fly around in circles and plan out the circus ring. So be it. The show will go on, promised Rhubarb. Lion was too sad to help and just sat and looked at the ground. So very reluctantly, Custard mumbled back over the fence and went off with Rhubarb up to the shed to help out. The birds had finished making the circus ring and were flapping about with glee, and Lion was still looking at the ground when Custard, the ringmaster, announced that
The fantastic Roobarb
of the one-dog circus company would
juggle for their entertainment, be fired from a cannon for their excitement, ride wild horses for their delight,
and finally,
perform breathtaking feats with his own four paws at a giddy altitude upon the high wire.
I haven't enjoyed myself so much for years, said Lion. The birds howled with agreement. That very moment, the real circus came thundering by. Rhubarb's muffled shouts for assistance to help him down were completely drowned by the brassy noise of the big band and the cheers from the garden animals when Lion invited everyone to a real circus. Rhubarb was so peeved at being snubbed, he jumped up and down angrily, slipped into the net, and didn't know if he was coming or going. Custard turned in his tracks at the sound of Rhubarb's high howling and decided to stay for the rest of the act.
Ahoy, everyone! Never mind the real circus. This is where the live wires are.
Shouted Custard, and laughed and laughed and laughed.
Look, everyone,
Shouted Rabbit,
it's raining cats and dogs.
and the show went on and on. One bright morning, when it was summer, there wasn't much happening in Rhubarb's garden, except Rhubarb marching up and down the lawn, learning out loud. Rhubarb had joined the Scouts, and although he said he would stay in the Scouts forever, well, everyone knew it was just a flash in the billy can. Rule 2. Promise to help other people at all times, muttered Rhubarb as he walked past the tree, tripped over someone's pink leg, and fell, head over woggle, into a sharp rose bush.
Rule 5. A scout is courteous.
Smirked Custard, picking up Rhubarb's scout book. I'm sorry, Custard, said Rhubarb with a smile. Is your leg all right? Would you like to join the Scouts? Custard threw the book at Rhubarb and told him to go and jump in the pond. Oh dear. Rule 6, he whimpered. A Scout obeys orders.
Scouting could be fun.
Chuckled Custard.
Just remember the rules, old chap.
Rhubarb was sitting in the pond, all wet and not at all amused. Rule 11, he growled. Scouts are not to be laughed at. Custard took not the slightest bit of notice of Rhubarb's anger, but simply quoted Rule 8.
A scout whistles and smiles under all difficulties.
Then went on to remind Rhubarb of Rule 6, to obey. Rhubarb was furious, but did just manage to peep a squeaky little whistle whilst he walked from the pond. Before Custard could bend the rules any more, Brown Owl birdies and was indeed shocked at what she saw. You too should set an example to these young birdies and stop this silly fooling, hooted Brown Owl. Rule 3, a scout must be useful. Now show the birdies how to do knots. Rhubarb was delighted and started off with a reef knot. And the birdies thought that was marvellous and dibbed and dobbed all around him. So Rhubarb told them all about half hitches and granny knots and timber hitches. Custard wasn't in the slightest bit interested and kept making rude remarks about grannies. The next knot, barked Rhubarb in a growling sort of way, is a rhubarb hitch, which when tied will never come undone. Take 2 pieces of rope, a brown piece and a pink piece, and tie them together like this. Then throw the loose end of the brown rope over the branch, pull it, and the pink piece will follow. The pink piece followed, and so did Custard. A swift half hitch will secure, beamed Rhubarb.
There's a hitch with everything you do, Rhubarb.
Snorted Custard. Yes, and thereby hangs a tail, chuckled Rhubarb in a winning sort of way. It was a fine summer evening, and Rhubarb had just finished tiffin and was reflecting on some stories he'd once heard about the grand old days, when he saw the garden animals lounging about, reading comics.
Ah, romance. Fine summer evenings scented with honeysuckle and filled with the sound of waltz music. Gone forever,
Sighed Rhubarb.
Good evening. Raymond Foxtrot Smythe,
Said the owner of the voice.
Rhubarb.
Said Rhubarb. Custard peeped over his comic, but wasn't really interested in the fox.
I'm looking for dancing couples,
Said Raymond.
There's to be a grand ball on Saturday, and the finest dancers will win a fishing holiday.
With that, Custard's ears pricked up, his eyes whirled round, and he tangoed towards the fox. Fishing already.
Good evening, sir.
Said Custard in a Crawley sort of way.
Did I hear you say fishing holiday?
Indeed you did, sir.
I say fish, awful things. No, not interested.
Said Custard. The fox thanked Rhubarb for his interest and said he hoped he'd meet him at the ball. Said Custard.
I'm not really interested in the ball myself, but I could show you a dance routine that's bound to win.
Custard spent all the next morning teaching Rhubarb the new dance. And when Rhubarb had finally mastered the steps, it looked the most graceless, lumbering dance ever. However, Rhubarb was convinced he'd win. He thanked Custard and dashed off to ask Poodle Princess if she'd accompany him to the grand ball. Meanwhile, back in the alley, the sneaky Custard was skipping off to see his girlfriend, Moggy Malone.
Well, Moggy, my dear, the fishing holiday is as good as ours.
Smirked Custard. When the gala night arrived, all the animals gathered up at the clearing on Fox's Dale. Moon was up, so everyone could see. It was a lovely evening. Each dance team was given a number, and when it was their turn, Raymond Foxtrot Smythe called them to the floor, team by team. Custard and Moggy Malone stole the very hearts of the judges as they whirled about the floor as though in a cloud, and when they finished, everyone clapped.
Number 25,
Called Raymond. Rhubarb and Princess began their strange clackety dance. Custard nudged Moggy, winked, and just knew they'd won. But after a few of Rhubarb's steps, the audience began to like the strange dance and started to join in. What fun it was! And what fun it was when Raymond awarded 47 points to Rhubarb and Princess and announced them outright winners.
Blighters!
Cringed Custard and went green with envy. Rhubarb was in the pink, Moggy Malone stormed out, and Princess accepted the winning prize tickets. I thought there was something fishy about the whole thing, she said, and everyone danced till dawn. Swifts were leaning on the warm air, and dragonflies were weaving barn dances over the reeds. And Custard was staring into the water at the fish who was staring back.
I wonder just how deep this pond is.
Mused Custard, with an evil twinkle in his eye.
Bottomless, some say.
Said he, dipping his paw into the water.
Well, there's only one sure way to find out, and that's what I aim to do. Deep pond diving expedition today. Anyone who wants to come along, meet at the pond at 1 o'clock.
Shouted Custard. Rookie shrugged and sighed. Custard had never been known to have an idea in his life.
Oh, here's a turn of events. Old Custard with an idea,
mused Rhubarb, sitting on the fence.
I must make the most of this,
he grinned, and so with one very wide yawn, he declared,
Oh, Custard, must you disturb the peace today? We're all trying to sunbathe.
Jacques Coustard does not care for sunbathing.
smirked Custard.
Water bathing, if you don't mind. You may join me if you wish.
Underwater swimming? I wouldn't go out in a rainstorm with you in charge, sniggled Rhubarb, and all the birds jumped about with delight. Rhubarb had worked out there could be only one motive for this newfound interest in deep pond diving, and that one motive must be deep pond fishing.
Ho-ho,
he said to the fish.
you'd better be prepared.
Up in the shed, Jacques Coustard was busy making lots of noise and an underwater swimming machine. All the birds squeaked with delight when the shed door burst open and Jacques Coustard, deep pond diver, stumbled out and flip-flopped his way into the pond. Rhubarb jumped up and down trying to break the fence with laughter, but alas, the fence stood firm. He wasn't as fat as Custard. Jacques Coustard took not the slightest notice of the scoffing, but proceeded into the water and looked about.
How strange.
Echoed Custard.
The place was teeming with fish when I looked down from up there. How very odd.
Up on the side of the pond, Rhubarb and the birds were all sitting round with fishing rods and reeling with laughter, together with the fish who were wearing moonfish bowls.
I do believe there are catfish in this pond,
barked Rhubarb, and all the fish gurgled with delight. All except Custard Catfish, who surfaced in a very angry mood. The fish thanked Rhubarb and plunged back into the pond.
One day, I'll perfect deep pond fishing, and when I do, you fish just watch out. Jacques Coustard won't be made a fool of a second time.
Carry on with ideas like this, and one day you might get your own TV series.
It was rather a flat day on Monday, with flat clouds floating in a flat sky, and flat birds sitting in flat trees, singing flat songs. Rhubarb was feeling a bit flat too, and was kicking his heels when he noticed something which gave him an idea.
Now, that would fill the day in very nicely,
said Rhubarb, as he watched Custard hop-bobbing on the other side of the fence.
Yes, a puppet show. I'll make some puppets and write a play,
beamed Rhubarb, and planned the whole spectacular as he rambled his way up to the shed without telling a soul. Jenny Wren happened to be perched on a bough, listening to the flat day go by, when Rhubarb trundled past. Jenny saw the whole plan and fluttered off to tell the others.
Jim lads!
All that morning, there were wisps of theatrical rehearsals wafting from the shed, as Rhubarb made his puppets, wrote the play, and perused his lines. Tragedy, drama, comic opera, whatever it was, he was bound to be a curtain raiser.
chortled Rhubarb as he swept out of the shed. Then trundled off to find an audience, only to be met by a sea of faces. "Well, I'm stage-struck," murmured Rhubarb. "A full house." With that, Rhubarb went behind a special bit of fence he'd made and began. "With great knowledge, together with great effort, and me, I have writ for you an excellent new play, which is to be performed for you by a cast of cut-out characters, manipulated by my own fair paws, and their lines reported to you by my own fair bark," announced Rhubarb, and his audience sat and waited with great expectations. "Not a groan nor a peep from them," noted Rhubarb. "Ah, well, on with the show then, eh? What?" "As a special attraction, the show will be performed entirely in original ventriloquism, as spoken in Ventnor." "Good morning." The play opened. "Good morning to go. Would you like a cup of coffee?" "No, thank you very much. I'd rather have a bottle of gear." Rhubarb thought the play was very, very funny and had hysterics. But the audience never uttered a squeak, and Rhubarb wondered why. "Oi, you lot! This is a very funny play, don't you know? So why aren't you laughing, eh?" demanded Rhubarb. "And why aren't you laughing, laddie?" he went on to Custard and poked him with his paw. "Cardboard cutouts!" screamed Rhubarb. "Oh, cardboard cutouts!" he ranted as he kicked everyone over. Sniggling and smirking noises were coming from the thicket, and so Rhubarb investigated. "Oh, so that's where you all are," growled Rhubarb. "Why all the cardboard cutouts?" he demanded.
Better that the card gets bored, dear boy, rather than us,"
tittered Custard with a smirk. "Sometimes words fail me," ranted Rhubarb.
"Yeah, especially when you write plays,"
chuckled Custard.
That's the best joke I've heard all day.
said Rabbit, and Rhubarb was laughed off the stage. There were rummaging noises and muttering and mumbling noises up at the shed. There was spring in the air, and as usual, there was Custard catnapping on the fence. The birds were down at the pond, wetting their whistles, and all in all, it was a very nice day, until spring sprung from the shed. "Seeds!" grinned Rhubarb. "Seeds for sowing," he beamed. "Yes, a few flowers here and there would make a world of difference to this garden," he rambled on.
"Sow the wind and reap the whirlwind,"
sighed Custard, and the birds twittered and nodded with agreement. Nothing much happened for the rest of the morning, and the day wore on until huffing and puffing noises could be heard on the other side of the thicket as Rhubarb turned the earth and mopped his brow. "One seed every now and then," read Rhubarb from the side of the packet, and planted the seeds step by step. "One now and one then," he went on, all over the garden. And when he'd finished, he stepped back and dreamed of summer. "All we do now is wait," shouted Rhubarb in a weary sort of way to the garden animals. "Wait for a garden full of beautiful colour." The moon came up over Custard's fence and beamed down onto the garden, where snores were busy buzzing about and everyone was asleep, when creaking and squeaking noises came out of the ground, followed by little green buds. When it was time, Rhubarb's noisy alarm clock wound itself up and rung its bell as loud as bells can be. "Oh, what? Oh, morning already?" chirped Rhubarb. "Oh, well, let's see what the day is all about," he went on. "It's a dream. That clock will have to go," snorted Rhubarb, glaring out into a deep green jungle. "Oh, I'm still asleep. That's what I am, asleep. And that's a big, fat, dreamy jungle." "Jungle?" snorted Rhubarb and went out to see.
All the birds were sniggling and giggling and chortling at Rhubarb when one of them overheard him saying something about an idea.
Idea? Rhubarb?
Squeaked the birds and went off in a flap. Screeched Rhubarb as he swung out of the shed, leapt up a tree and went ranting off through the jungle as fast as his rope could carry him.
A ferocious gorilla,
said a big shape in a voice Rhubarb recognized immediately.
Okay, tough guy, you're no gorilla,
said Rhubarb in a brave sort of way and pulled the gorilla mask off.
Oh, I know I'm no gorilla,
Sighed Custard.
but you're no gardener either.
Maybe I'm not,
Squeaked Rhubarb.
however, it would appear that I'm quite good at making jungles.
Rhubarb was chuntering about down the garden one day, with nothing much on his mind, as usual. When the sun came out and was busy brightening up the day, as Rhubarb noticed from the corner of his eye that he was being followed by a silent sneak. There's only one thing to do in a situation like this, growled Rhubarb, and he nipped behind a tree to wait. Waited, and was still waiting when he nearly jumped out of his fur as something tapped him on the shoulder.
Hello,
Said the shape.
am I who you're waiting for? Well, as a matter of fact, you are,
Squeaked Rhubarb.
Now, what do you mean by following me?
He went on in a slightly more growly way.
Haven't you anything better to do than go about following fierce dogs? Well, no, as a matter of fact, I haven't,
Sighed the shape.
You see, I was wondering if you could help me. I've been out of work all winter and really do need a job.
What do you do? Shrugged Rhubarb.
I'm a shadow.
Said the shape.
Well, everyone's got one of those,
Explained Rhubarb.
You'd have to be something else. But I'm a shadow boxer.
Said the shadow.
Oh, nice.
Said Rhubarb. Well, why didn't you say so earlier?
Roll up,
Shouted Rhubarb at the top of his bark as he stepped from the shed, followed by his new friend.
Come on now, folks. My shadow friend here will take on anyone else's shadow in a boxing match of not more than 3 rounds. Knock him out and win a prize. Come on now, folks. Roll up. Who's going to be the first?
Shouted Rhubarb. Some of the bigger birds came forward and said their shadows would have a go. Custard pushed his way to the front and said that his shadow would bash the living daylights out of Rhubarb's boxer friend.
Done.
Said Rhubarb. Shadow Boxer went into the ring and was all ready for a fair fight when out of Custard's corner a monster shadow who'd been especially bribed by Custard stepped forward and began to cheat right away.
Oh,
Cried everyone.
it's unfair.
And just as Custard's monster was about to throttle poor little Shadow Boxer, Cloud came along and hid the sun, right on time.
Scared, eh?
Snarled Custard, standing on top of the fence making a nuisance of himself.
I'll take you on myself.
He went on.
Come out, wherever you are.
Two can play at cheating, said Rhubarb in a smart sort of way, and nipped off to see a friend of his whilst Custard was still boasting.
Okay, Cloud, let's begin round 2,
Shouted Rhubarb.
Come on then, let's get on with it. I want me prize.
Shouted Custard. Cloud moved and Custard jumped into the ring.
Who's next?
He scoffed.
Oh, who can beat Custard when he's such a big cheat?
Squeaked everyone.
Cobber can.
Grinned Rhubarb. shrugged Custard.
Who's ever heard of anyone called Cobber?
I have, chuckled Rhubarb.
Cobber the kangaroo. Good night, Pink.
Growled Rhubarb's big friend, and clobbered Custard round and round the ring. Recently, Rhubarb was sitting in the garden, thinking how nice it was not having Custard grinning over the fence for once, and the birds scratching noises into the summer air with their silly beaks, and how nice it was having nothing happening apart from wondering what would happen next, when it did. Oh, cringed Rhubarb.
1 minute all's well, and the very next minute all's... There it is again.
What are you rambling on about now?
Inquired Custard, without even bothering to look over the fence.
Earthquakes.
Announced Rhubarb.
That's what I'm rambling about. Earthquakes, and lots of them. Whatever you do, don't panic.
Shouted Rhubarb as he careered round the garden, warning everyone about the dangers of earthquakes. And in the event of one, the dangers of wearing damp socks. Whatever that meant. Custard dragged himself out of a snoozle and heaved a sigh over the fence.
Ah, now what's the matter?
He inquired.
Earthquakes.
Screamed Rhubarb.
I've told you once, earthquakes. Don't you see? Maybe the end of the world.
Custard sank from sight, and the moon rose over the fence as Rhubarb worked on into the night, making an earthquake-proof machine, in which he planned to sit safely all the next day. When it got light, the sun beamed over the fence, quickly followed by Custard, looking for the first laugh of the day.
Ahoy in there!
Shouted Custard.
Come out, we know you're in there.
With all the noise going on, the birds bounced into the garden and squeaked with delight when Custard told them to get ready for the biggest laugh of their lives.
Ah, come on, Rhubarb, let us in on a joke.
Said Custard.
You laugh on the other side of your beaks when the earthquake comes.
Said a voice, echoing up from the far end of the garden. As everyone looked round, they saw a strange object dangling from the conker tree. What on earth could it be? Everyone asked.
Is it from space?
Queried Custard.
It's on a string.
Squeaked the birds.
This is my patented earthquake survival machine.
Echoed a hollow voice.
It is from space.
Quivered the birds, getting in a flap.
That is Rhubarb.
Chortled Custard, pointing to a window in the machine.
Well, well, well. If it's not the old dog himself, sitting in a dustbin swinging from an earthquake-proof tree.
Swaggered Custard, and tapped the dustbin hard enough to give poor old Rhubarb a headache for a fortnight. Then he burst into a chuckle, followed closely by twittering birds, a rabbit in raptures, and the howlings of hedgehogs, until the whole garden was in uproar at Rhubarb trapped in the dustbin.
Earthquake-proof.
Scoffed Custard. Said a bird. Said someone else, as everyone caught hiccups until the very earth trembled.
See?
Shouted Rhubarb from his machine.
You wouldn't listen to me.
On a morning that was even more scratchy than the others, and even earlier than ever, Rhubarb was lying in the garden in a grizzling sort of way and ranting on about being woken up yet again by the thumping and scraping of birds beating around bushes and ants marching in lines and bees buzzing about. My, it was noisy.
Will you be quiet?
screamed Rhubarb.
You're breaking the silence and it's far too early. Be quiet!
He went on, but so did the noise. On and on and on.
Right.
Ranted Rhubarb.
If it's broken silence you want, it's broken silence you get. In fact, I'll smash it to smithereens.
Screamed Rhubarb and stormed off up to the shed.
Did someone say something?
Sighed Mole, who'd surfaced after looking at his map upside down again and causing another minor incident. But there wasn't a sound between there and the wood. My, it was quiet. As quiet as a cucumber. As the afternoon wore on to an end, the silence began to creak at the seams as Rhubarb knocked and nailed till well after tea time, building a silence breaker with an old racket, some bellows, and lots of string. Custard popped his grin over the fence to see what was what, but apart from a couple of birds who'd just arrived at the tree, there wasn't a soul to be seen.
Very quiet this evening.
Mused Custard to himself.
Very quiet for the time of year. Still, makes a nice change. Be a pity to break it.
Sighed he, settling down on the fence for 40 winks, just as the shed door almost flew off its hinges as Rhubarb burst out into the garden with his nasty noise machine and shattered the silence.
Oi! Turn that thing off!
Demanded Custard.
You're breaking the silence! Turn it off!
I know,
Screamed Rhubarb.
it's my silence breaker. I made it. Good, isn't it?
He screamed as he trundled the machine all over the garden as it got louder and louder. What an inventive mind you have, Rhubarb thought to himself. Pardon? Oh, yes, brilliant. I can hardly hear myself think, he thought on. After he'd been round the garden twice, Rhubarb sat down for a while to have a little rest. There, he grinned. Excellent. That's broken all the silence in the garden and must have disturbed everything else for at least a mile.
Peace!
Roared a big black police dog.
Beg pardon?
Grinned Rhubarb.
Peace! That is what it's disturbed! The peace! Turn it off immediately! But this is my world silence breaker!
Shouted Rhubarb and pulled the stop handle, which wasn't very strong.
Oh! It's broken!
Whimpered Rhubarb as the machine set off round the garden completely out of control.
Disturbing the peace after a warning!
Screamed the police dog.
There's only one thing that breaks, and that is the law!
One morning, just after the chimes, and Grandfather Clock couldn't hold his big hand up any longer, Rhubarb was sitting in his kitchen, eating his morning newspaper, when there was a clatter at the front door as a huge brown paper parcel was squeezed through the letterbox and landed with a groan on the hall floor. Could this be the great day? Wondered Rhubarb breathlessly as he wandered into the hall and gazed at the plump brown parcel lying at his paws. It's arrived! It's arrived! It's arrived! Twittered Rhubarb as he led himself a dance round the house in a very excited way and skipped out into the garden to tell everyone the good news.
It's arrived! It's arrived!
He announced at the very top of his bark. Custard glanced into the garden.
What on earth is that?
Inquired he in such an uninterested way as only he knew how. This, said Rhubarb in a very excited way, as everyone gathered round for a close look,
Is my do-it-yourself bagpipe set.
With that, there was a scurrying and hurrying and scattering for the next 10 minutes until Rhubarb was completely alone, bar the bagpipes.
Right then, I'll make the whole caboodle myself without any help at all.
Nodded Rhubarb to the empty garden.
I thought you said it was a bagpipe kit.
Echoed Custard from the safe side of the fence.
Well, it is.
Snapped Rhubarb.
And not only is it a bagpipe kit, it's a famous Caboodles of Glasgow bagpipe kit, so there.
All the rest of that afternoon, Custard lay on his back, watching the clouds going by, and the birds larking about, and listening to Rhubarb gluing the bagpipes together and reading the notes. When Rhubarb had finished putting the final touches to the instrument, he turned the page in the instruction book, memorized a tune, ate the book, and announced to the world that there would be a bagpipe bonanza on the lawn at 4 o'clock. Sure enough, there was. Rhubarb was huffing and puffing the pipes, and there was great excitement in the garden when an underdog from Caboodles arrived with yet another brown paper parcel, even bigger than the first, and addressed to Custard the cat. All the birds flapped about as Custard strode over in a curious sort of way and untied the parcel there and then. "Dear Custard," said the words in a note just inside the box, "everyone who purchases a Caboodles famous bagpipe kit is entitled to a free Caboodles violin for his next-door neighbour."
Oh, wonderful! That's me! Thank you, Rhubarb.
Beamed Custard.
What a wonderful fiddle!
Said he, and played to the gallery for more than an hour.
Oh, gracious me, murmured Rhubarb. I think I've got more than I bargained for here.
You take the high road, and I'll take the low road.
Cackled Custard. Which way? Shrugged Rhubarb.
Any way you like. All the world's a stage, laddie.
Drawled Custard in a dreadful Scottish accent. Rhubarb was wandering down the garden in a wondering sort of way, greeting the others with grins, when he stumbled and fell over a bit of old root.
You should be going down, not up, don't you know?
Growled Rhubarb. But on further botanical investigation, it was quite clear that the old root was not in fact an old root, but an old book.
Good heavens,
mused Rhubarb in an interested sort of way, and pulled the book from the earth and poured his way through the pages.
This must have fallen off my family tree,
Gasped Rhubarb as he peered at the pages and into the past, face to face with his ancestors.
Good heavens,
Sir Rhubarb de Bone Idol.
Well, and here's sirloin steak, my great-uncle. And look at this, Lord Hound of the Baskervilles. Well, I never... Ho, Rhubarb Bonaparte, my most famous ancestor. And good gracious me, here's St. Bernard of Bavaria. And gosh, Baron de Boeuf. Well, I never, sputtered Rhubarb. Good heavens, good gracious me. Well, I never. Listen, everyone. Knaves, serfs, and etc.
He began.
I have reason to believe that because of some vital facts I have just seen in a book, which I shall digest later, that I, Rhubarb, am cleverer than the rest of you, because without doubt I am Sir Rhubarb. Yes, indeed. A knight.
Custard gaped through the fence and said nothing. The birds changed their tune, and the rest of the animals stopped what they were doing.
So then, serfs,
Quipped Rhubarb.
there will be sport on the green this day, just after 3.
Jested he, and swept off up to the shed.
Did I hear that fool say just after 3?
Inquired Custard.
I'm afraid so.
Sighed a songbird. In the middle of the afternoon, the shed door fell off its hinges as Sir Rhubarb axed his way out into the garden and threw down a gauntlet to challenge the world.
Excuse me, soldier.
Cackled Custard through the fence.
you've dropped your glove.
I'll drop you if you dare to take the field.
Echoed Sir Rhubarb.
I'll challenge anyone.
He bellowed in a hollow sort of way.
Challenge? Huh.
Shrugged Custard.
He couldn't say boo to a goose.
Grinned he, gaining an idea on the spot.
Wow, we don't know a goose,
Pondered Custard.
but we do know Rover the duck, and she's always good for a laugh.
When Rover arrived, she took up the challenge straight away, stood her ground, and Sir Rhubarb took a swing, lost his balance, keeled over, and lay on the lawn, livid.
Well, that's cooked his goose, so's to say.
Cracked Custard, and Rover went into raptures, and the birds went wild.
Anyone like to join me for fencing?
Grinned Custard. Very late one evening, when even the birds had stopped squeaking, Rhubarb was tip-pawing about the garden, muttering mutters to himself.
What's that noodle-brained dog up to at this unearthly hour?
Yawned Custard, and spied through the fence with a cat's eye to business. And one here, and one there, and one under that, muttered Rhubarb in a mumbling sort of way, as he buried bones all over the garden, ready for the Hunt the Bone game at his garden party. There, that should do very nicely. Thank you very much, Rhubarb, said Rhubarb, licking his lips as he planted the very last of the bones, knowing full well that he'd win the game because he knew where all the bones were. What a smart dog you are. The great bone rush should make me a fortune, he grinned as he collapsed wearily into his bed.
Jumping mackerel! A fortune, eh?
Whistled Custard and crept off into the night. As the moon covered herself up with big fluffy clouds and rocked herself to sleep, Custard spent the darkened hours making himself a fortune by hawking a few bad deeds to land he didn't even own.
Well, that's the very last one.
Grinned Custard as he sold the final plot of land, told everyone that,
There were bones in them there hills.
and loitered off with the loot. Rhubarb's alarm clock was getting a bit wound up about ringing, but with so much noise outside, there wasn't any need to bother. Rhubarb rolled over, opened an eye, then the other, and looked out with great amazement, which very quickly turned into an even greater anger.
I demand to know what's happening.
Rhubarb screamed at the top of his bark as he stamped his paw and glared out onto something that looked like Klondike High Street on a Saturday.
This is my garden. Who gave you permission to dig holes all over it? Stop that digging immediately.
Demanded Rhubarb. Push off, greenhorn, grizzled a battered old panhandler. And with that, Rhubarb turned tail and slunked off back up to the house.
The world's gone mad. I didn't invite any of these gangsters to my garden party. Yet they're all here digging up my bone game.
Shrugged Rhubarb, just as he saw Custard's fat face grinning over the fence, and the whole crazy situation fell into place. I might have known he'd spoil everything, sniffed Rhubarb in a sad sort of way.
Oi, oi. Here's a bone.
Shouted a big gruff geezer.
Here's another. What? Rubber bones? Here, what's the game?
Demanded a big husky dog from Alaska.
Hunt the rubber bone. Hunt the rubber bone at the garden party.
Shouted Rhubarb from up at the house, and Custard's greedy grin fell off his face.
Oi, cat. We got a rubber bone to pick with you.
Growled 500 mad dogs as Custard set off over the hill.
Oh, you can't beat a morning run, I always say.
Grinned Rhubarb.
Now, where
Did I hide my bona fide breakfast? On a very thinking day, in the middle of the week, Roobarb was lying in the garden with his head in his paws, thinking about being someone else. If I were a Ronnie or a Reggie, or even a Fred, then I couldn't very well be a Roobarb. But on the other paw, it mightn't be a bad idea to be someone else, for a while at least. I might even get a bit of respect from old Custard Face if I was someone else. Oh, Roland's a good name. That's it. I'll hypnotize everyone into thinking I'm a Roland. With that, he announced that there would be free hypnotizing in 7 minutes, and that all were welcome. Whilst Roobarb was up in the shed, one or two of the birds fluttered down to the lawn. Custard slipped over the fence and said,
"Ah, what a lovely flower Rhubarb's grown."
but nobody believed him. What they all wanted was some free hypnotizing. Rabbit wanted to know if it tasted like lettuce.
"You don't eat hypnotizing,"
Snorted Custard.
"You wear them."
Dead on the stroke of after 7 minutes, the shed door swung open and Rhubarb stood swooning for a while, hypnotizing everyone. I am Roland, the great hypnotist, announced Rhubarb, and with lots of humming and hawing, he dangled a shiny gold watch in front of their eyes. I am Roland. I am Roland.
Come on, Rhubarb, stop trying to fob us off with some cheap tricks. Where's our free hypnotism you promised us?
Demanded Custard. This is hypnotizing, my dear Custard. Look into my eyes. I am Roland. I am Roland. Repeat after me. I am Roland, said Rhubarb.
I am Roland. I am Roland,
said Custard in a dreamy sort of way. No, I am Roland, growled Rhubarb.
"No, I am Roland,"
chuckled Custard, winking at Rabbit. I am Roland, thundered Rhubarb. He's a proper Charlie, this Roland, muttered Rabbit, who thought he was a bird. Any Tom, Dick or Harry can see he's Rhubarb. And with that, Mole jumped onto the fence and made a mockery of the whole afternoon. What do you think of hypnotism, Rabbit? Inquired Rookie, who thought he was a mole. We think it's very funny, said the birds, who thought they were rabbits. What do you think, Custard? Said Tortoise, who thought he was a hare.
"We all love it,"
twittered Custard. Mole laughed so much, he fell off the fence. Good gracious, it's all gone wrong, worried Rhubarb. They all think there's someone else. I can hardly believe my eyes. Oh dear, who on earth are you?